Hey team, welcome back to another episode of the Strength Game Podcast. I'm your host, Nick O'Brien, and this is episode number 13. The Strength Game is a weekly podcast dedicated to discussing all things physical culture with the coaches, athletes, iron enthusiasts, and experts deeply embedded in the strength game on both sides of the profession, both as coaches and as competitive athletes. I want to thank everyone who has liked, shared, and commented. Your support allows us to continue to bring on expert level guests and highlight more individuals in the strength game, just like our guests today. I also want to thank Cerberus Strength for bringing you this podcast for free. Owned and operated by active lifters, Cerberus is trusted by the top strength sport athletes and lifters in the world. Cerberus's wide range of products are made by athletes for athletes, truly living up to its moniker, made by the strong for the strong. From sandbags, training gear, and supplements to lifting straps, knee sleeves, and more, Cerberus Strength provides the highest quality strength products on the market, designed and manufactured to help you defeat, destroy, and devour your competition. So if you're in the market for some of the highest quality strength and conditioning gear and equipment, be sure to use our promo code STRENGTH_GAME at checkout to receive 10% off your next order at cerberusstrength.com. In this week's episode, I'm joined by another former Salisbury alumni, Curtis Miller. Curtis is the Director of Customer Engagement and Personal Training at Union Fitness in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Before moving to Pittsburgh in 2019, Curtis was born and raised on Maryland Eastern Shore, where he worked in the private sector as a personal trainer for 11 years, as well as being an intern at one point at Salisbury University. Curtis is also a competitive powerlifter who has competed in 15 meets over the course of his career the last 7 years. His highest accomplishment came in his most recent meet where he totaled 2,000 pounds in the 242-pound weight class. His best lifts to date are an 804 squat, 440 bench, and 777-pound deadlift. I'm excited to have him on the show today for you guys. So with all that said, let's get in the game with Coach Curtis Miller. What's going on, everybody? I'm excited. I'm joined with my friend, another former Salisbury Seagull, actually from the area too. So he's probably more of a Seagull than anybody else. Curtis Miller, what's going on, man?
What's up, dude? How you been?
Not bad, man. Excited to have you on today. I know you had a lot of recent developments and stuff that I want to get into. Your big goal kind of smashed. So we got some topics I want to get to. But first, kind of introduce yourself to everybody. Like, can you give a little bit of background how you first got started in the strength game and lifting, and then what got you into powerlifting now as a competitor?
Yeah, man. So it's been a little bit of a journey. When I sit here and think about it, it seems like it's been much longer than it actually has. But as you mentioned, grew up in Maryland, about 40 minutes north of Salisbury. So, there's not much to do up there because it's just cornfields and everything's flat. So you just grow up playing sports and working. So grew up playing soccer, baseball. I was actually kind of dead set on playing baseball in college. When I was growing up, I was one of those kids that was like, I'm going to be a professional baseball player, so that was going well. And then when I got into high school, you kind of fall in love with different things. So you have sports. Yes. You're working, you find, you figure out like the opposite sex. So you kind of start getting into girls and stuff like that. But for me, it was cars. My dad and I, when I was 9 years old, we bought a 1970 Mustang and we did everything with it. My dad and I are the same person, so we always butted heads. And working on this car was like the one thing that kind of kept us close and kind of helped us build our relationship. So when I graduated high school, believe it or not, I kind of threw away the idea of playing baseball. And I actually went to a automotive college up here around Pittsburgh. It's called Blairsville, out in the middle of nowhere. I think the only thing they have is like a Walmart. And basically the courses that I was taking were street rod fabrication, custom chassis building, painting, collision repair, stuff like that. And that was what I was dead set on doing for the rest of my life. I graduated from there. I bounced around to a couple different shops and I loved it, but it was in 2008. So, that's when the economy was kind of messed up and nobody wanted to spend money on having their classic cars built. So I was bouncing back and forth in between jobs. And I think my girlfriend at the time like broke up with me and I was devastated, didn't have anything to do. One of my good friends was like, "Hey man, why don't you come to the gym?" And where I grew up, the high school that I went to, our coaches didn't really believe in lifting all that much. It was that old school. Besides football, our football coaches were big on lifting, but soccer coaches, they didn't want us lifting. It makes you slower, lose flexibility, get big and bulky, blah blah blah. So I'd never really lifted before, and my friend took me in the gym, and I'm like, "Dude, I don't know my way around the gym. What are we doing?" Naturally, we're bench pressing, right? So I, I think I have like 135 pounds on the bar. And the football coach, who is also my history teacher, he walks up to me and he's got the whole football team in there. Some of the kids, which I know from school. And he goes, "Miller, what are you doing in here? Are you lost or something?" And I was, so embarrassed, right? Because football coach, they hated the soccer kids. Football team hated the soccer team and the baseball team. So I pretty much wanted to quit right there. And I just kept coming back in the gym. And I was finding that lifting was helping me get through a pretty tough time. I didn't really know what my next step was, but I knew that every time I walked into that gym, I was getting better. And even though I didn't really have goals, I was accomplishing something. And I realized that it kind of translated into my daily life where it gave me motivation. I was becoming a better person. I was learning things that I never knew. And then I started actually working with some people. I wasn't training them, but people would be like, "Hey, Kirk, can I come train with you?" And so I started just passing on the things that I had been learning that had been helping me. And I realized that I got more out of doing that than I did actually making myself better. So in a weird way, working with those people and helping them learn what I had learned was helping me, was motivating me. And it was like a year or so later, that's when I decided to go back to school. So I actually started it at Chesapeake College, did 2 years at Chesapeake, and then I transferred to Salisbury. And that was pretty much it. I was hooked. That was when I got to Salisbury, it crossed my mind about trying to play baseball. And then I was like, "Nah, man, I'm past that. I know what I want to do for a fact." And I was just so dead set on it that the rest is kind of history.
Yeah, that's awesome. I didn't realize you could have, if you would have played baseball, I would have had you then too.
Yeah, I know, that would have been crazy. I actually thought about that. I used to sit in the parking garage some days and just like, how you could look outside of it and see the baseball field
Yeah.
to watch practice. That's how much like I still loved it. And a kid I grew up with was Quinn Griffith.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Quinn was that kid that when we were growing up, we always knew how much talent he had, but he never really started showing it until he got deep into college. And so it was cool following him. But yeah, I do miss baseball, but I am much happier with the path that I took.
Yeah, that's cool to hear though, like you helping others and then kind of getting into training yourself, like motivated you to actually choose that as a career path. And at the same time, you still found yourself training. And even like when you first started, not essentially having goals, like you still felt like you were accomplishing something. And I think that's how a lot of strength coaches or personal trainers actually get started, is you find such a passion for it and you're always in the gym and people always see you. Because if you go into like a local gym and you go the same time every day, you're going to see the same people every day. And when they see you doing something and they come up and ask you questions, that's kind of how you first start your coaching journey. And I think that's the same thing when I found my mentor when I was like first getting into lifting. I just kind of went up to the biggest guy in the room, was like, hey, can you help me? And
Yeah.
then eventually, like, I definitely wasn't the biggest guy in the room, but eventually people started asking me questions or wanting to train with me. And like, I found out that this is kind of a cool aspect. And you just pick a career path, whether you want to work with clients in an individual setting or if you want to work with sports. But that's awesome to kind of hear. And then after you kind of left Salisbury, I know you did a lot of personal training until the point where now you're working at Union Fitness, and Union's pretty cool. You've got everything from former Division I head strength coaches and directors to big time competitive power lifters. I think you got a few bodybuilders. You got a little assortment of everything. Like with that position, like what's it kind of mean to be surrounded by coaches and high like level competitors? Like how does that kind of funnel and make you guys better coaches?
Yeah, it's something that I've always appreciated, because I didn't really have any big mentors in strength and conditioning or powerlifting or anything like that when I was growing up, and it took me a long time to learn the things that I've learned. And so when I really started making the conscious effort to go find these people, you go to conferences and you through powerlifting meets, you meet a lot of high level athletes, and not just high level athletes, but good humans, good people, and you start building these connections with them, and eventually, that leads into opportunities. And that's really the biggest thing that I've gotten out of this, is through powerlifting, the people who I've met and the doors that has opened has led me here to Pittsburgh and Union Fitness. It was probably a little over 3 years ago, I met Casey Williams. I was lifting at the Arnold, and it was like 2016. It was in my mind, it was like the pinnacle of my lifting career. I think I had only been powerlifting for like 3 or 4 years, and I thought I was hot shit. So I go to this meet, and it's like Larry Williams is supposed to be lifting, and Casey Williams and all these other guys. And I thought I had something to prove. And it was actually the worst meet to date that I've had, but it ended up being the best experience that I've had. And Casey, actually, a couple days before that, he found out that he had ulcerative colitis, and he actually had to back out of the meet. And if he was lifting, I probably wouldn't have gone up and talked to him, because I always tried to respect people at meets and not bother them. But because he was sick and he wasn't competing, he was sitting in the corner of the room, and I was having a bad day. When I just walked up to him and I was like, "Hey man, I'm sorry to hear about, you not being able to compete. Just want to introduce myself." And that dude, even being sick, took probably 15 to 20 minutes of his time to sit down and ask me how my day was going. And then before I left, he said, "I want you to let me know if you ever need anything." And that stuck with me, man. We flew home, and it was 2 weeks later. I was laying in bed, and I just woke up, and I woke up my girlfriend at the time, now my wife, and I go, "Liz, so I've got to build a relationship with this dude. Like, I don't know why, but something just tells me that I need to reach out to him." And a couple weeks later, I hired him as a coach. And, he coached me for 2 years. And during that time, my wife and I traveled up here to Pittsburgh probably like once a month. And it helps because her family's here. She grew up here. So it wasn't like we were staying in a hotel, which I would have done anyway, you know, to gain that kind of knowledge and be around those kind of people. But, we traveled up here once a month for 2 years. And I went home one day. I had a rough day at work, and I come home from work and I walk in the door and I go, let's move. And she's like, what do you mean? I'm like, let's move to Pittsburgh. And up to that point, I told her I would never move away from Maryland. You know what I mean? Like, when you grow up on the Eastern Shore, 95% of the people live on the Eastern Shore for life. And I thought that was going to be me. So, we made the decision to move. And at the time, I didn't have a job lined up. It was that thing. I was getting kind of burnt out at the place where I was working. And it was a great place, and I met a lot of great people, and I was very busy, but I was getting burnt out. I was training between 40 and 50 training sessions per week, 1-hour training sessions. And my busiest month, I think it was November of 2018, I had 192 training sessions. And at that point, I was like, I kind of need to step away from this. And we decided to move up to Pittsburgh. No job lined up. She's a teacher. It's hard to get a teaching position up here in Pittsburgh. She didn't have a job lined up, and we were going to do it anyway, just because of the people who I had met up here and the connections that I had built. I knew it's where I needed to be for not just lifting, but for my career as well. And it was like a month or two before I moved up. Casey called me and he goes, hey man, I got a positioning opening up. I need a director of personal training. I want to offer it to you if you want it. So everything kind of fell into place. And then, the week we move up here, Liz gets a job offer here at North Allegheny, which is like one of the best school districts that you can be in. And it just felt like that vision that I had was just falling into place. And, that's how I got here. So being around the people, Todd Hammer's my boss. He's been everywhere in college athletics. He knows everybody. And so he's been a good mentor. And I've just met so many people up here that there's no way I could have learned the things that I'm learning now if I would have stayed where I was. So I, just taking that chance and that jump, just like I'm sure you're experiencing the same thing, has made the biggest difference.
That's awesome to hear, because I know, like, nowadays, like, there's stuff like this, there's books, there's podcasts, there's endless information, but I still think that, like, a phone call or conversation or going to visit people, my all-time favorite thing to do still, like, in college strength and conditioning. I don't really like traveling, but I really do like going to see other coaches in their environment. Yeah. And like you said, you didn't really have too many mentors when you first started out, and to find one and talk to them and have a conversation with them and then continue it and seek out and see the importance of it, I think is huge. And it's awesome to hear that basically everything kind of fell into place. It wasn't luck or anything. You took a chance and you were going to risk it all to go to that position because you saw the benefit that it was going to be, not just for you, but for like your wife now and for your career, for your lifting, for everything. So I think that's a good testament. That's a good piece of advice for anybody. Realistically, like, if you found a passion for something and you really want something and you see the importance of it, then you got to put everything on the line for it. And that's pretty cool, because it segues into what I really wanted to talk to you about as well, because powerlifting and personal training and even coaching, like, from my point of view, a lot of times it is kind of an individual profession. Like, you're working on the business or you're working in it and you're by yourself for a lot of things. You have your own clients. You're responsible for your own team. At the end of the day, in strength sports, whether you are successful or not whether you podium or not, is the work you put in, like the effort you put in, and you've got no one to blame but yourself. But from Union Fitness and from your own, like, kind of powerlifting team, like, you guys have a crew that you train with within the sport. Like, kind of speak on some of the benefits of being involved in an individual sport, but why is it important to train with a team and have a crew on meet day or training events or even life and stuff outside of powerlifting?
Yeah. This is probably, if you were to ask me, what is the biggest thing, the most important thing that I have done as far as lifting goes, or that I think is the most important thing for other athletes, it's finding those type of people, finding that crew. When I was in Maryland, I had a crew of guys, and we had a lot of fun. We were friends outside of the gym, and I I think I just wanted to take a different path with my lifting journey, whereas it I knew that I wanted to get the absolute most out of it. Whether I become the best or not didn't matter. At the end of the day, I wanted to know that I gave it everything I could. And it's no disrespect to those guys, but that's not for everybody. You know what I mean? Like, that path isn't for everybody. And I think that I just realized that I needed to branch out a little bit. And through Casey, I met a crew of guys up here in Pittsburgh, and it's legitimately changed 100%. My progress, my abilities, even me as a coach, the things that I'm learning from those people. Um, it, it's hard to put into words, really, when you find a group of individuals who cares more about you sometimes than you care about yourself. You know what I mean? When you find a group of people who push you harder than you ever believe you could be pushed, and they believe in you in times that you don't even think you can do things, that makes the biggest difference. But it's also, whether it's powerlifting, whether it's the strength and conditioning college setting, you have to find people better than you, and that's how you continue to grow. You don't want to be the big fish in the pond, right? And that's kind of what this has done for me. um, Although I did just total 2,000 pounds, yeah, that's cool. But the people that I'm training with and the people I'm surrounding myself with have more knowledge than my total, if that even makes sense. You know what I mean? Anybody can be strong, but it's the things you learn from those around you and the things that you learn on that path that really make the biggest difference. So regardless of if it's powerlifting, if it's tennis, if it's baseball, it doesn't matter. You gotta, the guys and the girls that you train with are everything. And I'm not saying that you can't make progress on your own, doing your own training with your own programming, but I don't think a lot of people realize what a good crew will do for them. And I didn't realize it. When I was training back home, I think I got to like a 1650 total. And when I decided to move, in the last like 2 years of traveling back and forth just to train with these individuals who I'm training with, I went from like a sub 1700 total to a 2,000 pound total. My programming on paper did not change. The only thing that really changed was I removed some stressors from my life, and I started training with people that were better than me, that were pushing me to levels that I couldn't push myself. And that's really what it comes down to.
Yeah, man, I couldn't agree more. And I'm happy you found a team to push you. And I think you hit all those points like that are super important, whether it is a strength sport or if it's a traditional sport or whatever it is. Like, to have a support system around you and have people that are going to push you. And I try to tell my athletes that all the time. Like, I want 100% I want 100% effort of your 100% that day. Like, that's all I want. And if it's only 40% of what your best is, that's okay. But you've got someone to your left and right that you hope is going to pick you up on that day, that believes in you the same, that should give you confidence. And that only raises your level every single time. And that's awesome that you have that sort of support system and people to push you and challenge you and call out your bullshit.
Yeah.
That's one thing that people don't think about.
Yeah.
Like, and I've fallen victim to it because I do train solo a lot. Even having other strength coaches like within my environment right next to me, they don't have the same goals as me. They might not have the same work ethic or whatever you want to call it. It's the reason you left and found a team that maybe they don't have the same goals, or maybe they're not even training the same sport, but they respect what your goals are, and they're going to make sure that you push yourself every single day to obtain them if you said that's what you want to do.
Yeah. It was crazy because, one of my training partners, Joe Lucas, is, he's a teacher and he's a husband and a father of 2 kids, and they're young kids. Like, he wants the weekends to be able to spend time with them. And this dude showed up every Sunday for our training sessions and wrapped my knees for every set of squats. He comes to the meet, spends 12 hours at the meet, and handles me for squats and wraps my knees. You know how hard it is to find somebody that'll do that? And the biggest thing is these guys, they, when it comes to training and trying to reach your goals, they understand what it takes to get there, and they're not going to kiss your ass. You know what I mean? If you're having a bad day, they're going to put you in place. I've always been more kind of a reserved lifter, and I should say cautious with my weight selections and the way that I think I should progress. But there gets a time where you got to just say screw it, and you got to just start pushing yourself. And that's what they do. Leading up to this meet, the most I'd ever squatted in a meet was 730 pounds. And they could tell that I was capable of an 800-pound squat. But still, when you think of that as a lifter, you're like, dude, that's 70 more pounds. Like, that's nuts. 70 more pounds in a year at the level that I'm at now is kind of berserk. And so when we were in training, it's getting like two months out from the meet. They're like, what do you want to put on the bar? I'm like, let's go 725. And they're like, no, no, we know you're going to hit that and you're going to smoke it. Right now is the time you start turning it up. They're like, put 745 on the bar. You're going to hit it. It's just a matter of how it's going to move. So, having those people who are outside of your shoes that can see what you're capable of and are going to call you out on it is the biggest thing. They could have very easily been like, yeah, let's just throw 725 on the bar because it's the safe bet. We know he's going to hit it, and we don't want to see him get hurt. But these guys know what it takes, and they hold me accountable. They make me feel like a little bitch sometimes. You know what I mean? But that's why I moved up here. So that accountability is really what it comes down to.
Yeah, it's great to have people like that on your side, and it's a different perspective, which is great because you're going to be pretty biased about it, and they're going to give you an unfiltered view. And I think you've said it before, like with them, it's tough love. Mm-hmm. And that's what you need on your side. And it's great to have people that, hey, it's your time to perform. We're in your corner for all of it. I think you start to see it like big powerlifting meets, like the Arnold World's Strongest Man. They have a crew of people around them, and it's all like for the greater good of that one person. And then they'll turn around, and when it's their time to shine, they're in their corner, like not trying to take the spotlight, making sure everything is perfectly aligned for them. It's awesome to hear.
It almost doesn't make sense because when you think about it, like a sport like powerlifting, what are we gaining? We're not making money. We're not getting sponsorships. So it's a group of people that are legitimately just pushing each other for the reason of just being better in the gym, and then being better outside of the gym in life. And sometimes it doesn't make sense when you see like a whole group of people helping one person at a meet. You're like, wow, those people are sacrificing weeks and months and years and hours to help this one person right now. It's kind of crazy when you think about it, but that's the beauty of it.
Yeah, but those are the people I want to be around.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
Hey, so I don't want to take light of this. I know this episode will probably be released a little bit later, so you'll probably be getting ready for your next meet. But your last one, you did just total a huge 2,000 pounds at the 242 weight class. Was it 804 squat, 440 bench, 777 deadlift just to get right in 2,000?
So those are my best lifts.
Those are the best ones?
Yeah. So for this meet, it was 804, 730, or excuse me, 804, 430, and then 766. And that put me at like, with the kilos, I'm no kilo warrior, right? With the kilos, that put it at like 2,000.7, something like that. And it wasn't my best day. And but you never can plan on having a perfect day. You can go into a meet and say, this is what I'm capable of on a great day, but you should never bank on that, because just like with strongman, things happen. You have to understand that, okay, there's a range of performance that I could hit today. If it's down here on that day, this is my plan of attack. If it's up here, this is my plan of attack. But yeah, I was fortunate to achieve a goal that I think everybody wants in the sport. It's like when you hear that somebody totaled 2,000 in powerlifting, it's like, okay, that person's legit. Now, unfortunately, 2,000 pound total doesn't mean the same thing that it meant 5-10 years ago, right? I would say 10 years ago, that would have been like top 10 all time raw at 242. And now it's like top 70 maybe, so the sport has evolved and grown for the better, but still, I'm trying to kind of take it in and realize what I just accomplished. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it is pretty cool. I mean, I'm not thinking about numbers like that in my head. That's way out of control. That's probably why I get to compete in a weird sport that doesn't have the weight measured exactly. It's like, oh, is that 18 inches? Whatever.
Yeah.
Put a tire on it. It's fine.
Yeah.
No, but that's huge. And no, you talked about it a little bit too. Like, it's not when you put all your best lifts together, like, you're capable more. And that's probably a reason that makes you even hungrier to go out and compete and kind of push the boundary a little bit. Most people that will never step on the platform don't understand that, like, all the intricacies that go into meet day. And like you said, you've got a partner coming there. He's handling you. Like, people don't even understand that, like, what the backroom situation is. It's a nightmare.
Yep.
And picking weights and jostling for position, and what do you have to actually get. And then the good thing for freedom mutants is shifting over from kilos, which that's another pain in the ass, of course. But hey, so when you do accomplish a goal after this, like, what do you do after you set your sights on this for a while now and you actually accomplish it? And I know you just said it yourself, like, you're still trying to wrap your head around it. But like, is it satisfying to you? Like, do you have loftier goals? Like, how do you continue to challenge yourself? Is this just a stepping stone for you? Or like, when do you get ready for a next competition, stuff like that?
Yeah. So you kind of made a good point. Knowing what you're capable of on a great day is always going to help you continue to strive for more. And I think that's one area where a lot of people go wrong within their training, and within how they approach a meet. Unless you're at the top of the sport, your goal should never be to go all out and hit your highest goals that you have on a meet day. And the reason I believe that is because you don't leave anything in the tank to build off of for your next meet. So if I would have gone into this meet, and I've been powerlifting for 7 years, if I would have went in this meet and every single lift that I hit was absolute maxed out, like grinding, and it would have been cool because I would have had a higher total, right? But where would I have went in my mind after that meet was over? I would have gone home and I would have sat down and said, dude, that was absolutely everything I have. Do I even have more in the tank for my next meet, or am I tapped out? So I think for younger lifters and anybody who's not at the that top like 0.1%, I think your mindset should always be to just make small incremental progress every single training block or every single meet prep. Ed Cohn said that best, and he's only the greatest powerlifter of all time. He never put numbers in his mind. He just knew that if he got better every training cycle, then he would continue to get stronger. And he had that mindset over his entire career, even when he was at the top, and it continued to propel him. And when you watch Ed Cohn, some of his old lifting videos, nothing ever really looked hard. Even when he deadlifted 900 pounds at 220 pounds or whatever it was easy. And when things move well on meet day, it always gives you that confidence going forward, and you always believe that you can still achieve more. And that's always been my mindset. I'm sure there will come a time when I'm at a meet, maybe there's big bragging rights involved, maybe I'm going against top lifters. That'll be a little different because I'll be going for a big win. On a meet like that, you have to lay it all out on the line. But 99% of the time, you're just trying to get 1% better every time, every meet that you do. And that's one of the biggest things that's kept me going is when I'm done a meet, I take some time off. I am a little sick right now, but besides that, I haven't touched a weight period in the last 3 weeks. And I probably won't for another week or two. And it helps me reset, spend time with my family, kind of get some ideas, reset my goals, and I go in with a fresh mindset in the next training block. And I think that's where a lot of people go wrong is they jump right back into training. And, this sport and any sport, it's not about how much you can do in a short period of time, but it's about, what you can consistently do over the course of years. That's when you have the ability to become the best. And that's just always been my mindset. It's working so far.
No, that's a great point. And I think that goes just as well for young lifters as intermediate, even advanced ones that are trying to have success and sustainability like throughout the career. If you can continue to make incremental like gains over the course of your career, one, you're going to hopefully be healthy long enough to actually attain. If you have lofty goals, and I know yours are now increasing a little bit after you hit just a mile marker, like you need to be able to stay in the game long enough to actually hit them. There's no point in emptying the tank and going for bragging rights just because you've done it in the training hall or you've done it somewhere else. Like the whole point is to get it on paper, hopefully go 9 for 9, or maybe challenge yourself on one of those and work those areas and build yourself up to 10 years down the line. Or you have to have some longevity in it. No one is going to come out their first year and set world records.
Yeah, right.
It doesn't happen. And I think that's a great point that you had. Like, honestly, anytime someone asks me that's not one of my athletes, like for a program, It's like, do you have a gym membership? No. Okay, well, probably get that first. We'll start with that.
Right,
After
right.
you've gone there for like 3 days a week for 4 weeks straight, then we'll talk.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, it's just, all right, bench, squat, deadlift, overhead press
Yeah,
every week for 10 years and you'll get strong.
100%.
It's pretty simple.
It really is. It really is. I think Instagram is one of the worst things and best things that has happened to everything, right? But I'm especially seeing it with powerlifting, because how many times do you go on Instagram and you see this freak who's like 17 years old, 18 years old, 19, 20, whatever, and they're hitting these absurd numbers only to disappear in the next couple years. And when you see that stuff, other people who are that age or even older or younger are seeing that, and they think that they can do the same. And then what's happening is they're just either getting burnout, they're peaking way too fast, or they're getting injured is what happens most of the time. And then, they realize, like, when it's too late, that they've made a mistake. The basics are gonna, like you said, the basics are what propels you. I think a lot of times people get too complicated. Even coaches, right? Online coaches, what they try to do is they try to reinvent the wheel, right? It's like, let's do this variation and that variation. And, it's so far removed from the basic movement that it gets everything just washed down too much. And what I try to do with myself and anybody that I work with, take a step back, barbell squatting, benching, deadlifting, overhead pressing, rowing, dips, row until you row your face off, right? But basics, man, it's what's worked since the beginning of lifting, and it's what works now. And I think people try to get too complicated and fancy and just look cool. And you do it long enough and you do it correctly and stay injury free, and you're going to be freaking good, and it just takes time.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. It's I know it's a double-edged sword. It's nice to have the information out there, but you do see the burnout, or you see just eyewash left and right. And yeah, I get it. Like, there's going to be some context to everything, and whatever gets you your likes and makes you famous, go for it. But I like how you talked about too, like after your meet, like coming down and just not even touching a bar. I'm sure you're doing other stuff. Like, I know you're sick right now, but like even hiking or just going on walks or doing something completely different. Like, not only does that not burn you out and it gives you a chance to recharge and kind of center yourself, but then like you were saying, you can process those goals. You can start to think about setting the goals so you don't go right back into it right away, because you're probably off balance at that point. You're not really aligned to what you want to do. And again, like injury concerns and things like that. I think those are all great points for people. And it's something that I do after competitions. It's something that I set up for my teams after programs. Like, we got coaches that lose like right in the first round or don't even make the playoffs. They're like, okay, we're going to start lifting again. It's like, do you understand the stressors that are involved?
Right.
And like, not even physically, mentally, like psychologically, all the things that go into that, all these athletes put into competition and preparation and training, like you can't quantify a lot of that stuff. And it is better just to take a step back, take a step away from it, and figure out what you actually want to do next.
Yeah, you're exactly right. I mean, one of the best things that kind of happened to me was back in March. I actually came down with a serious case of the flu, and I could not lift at all. And it was actually right as a lot of businesses were shutting down and things like that. So unfortunately, Union Fitness had to close down, and I was quarantined at home with my wife. We didn't have any training equipment. I had some resistance bands, some cinder blocks, and some bags of rice. That's all I had. And one thing I hadn't done since my high school soccer days was run, like run for longer than 100 yards. And I started getting outside, and for 10 weeks, I didn't touch a barbell. 10 weeks. That's the longest that I've never gone longer than a couple weeks without touching a barbell. And I started going on jogs, and I started, just doing like body weight movements, lunges, push-ups, pull-ups, like things that you do when you're a young kid in gym class. And I did that for 10 weeks, and my perspective changed so much, and it helped my approach to lifting. And, when you're out and taking a walk in nature every day, you understand that there's more to life than your sport. You know what I mean? Like, your sport that you're competing in is temporary, but when that's all said and done and you remove yourself from it, where's your mind going to be, and what's left? And, you're walking outside, and it just kind of opens your eyes to everything. And then you come in, if you use that correctly, that mindset, when you go back into training, can fuel you so much. And after those 10 weeks, when I got back under that bar, I felt like I was more motivated than I've ever been, and not only was I more motivated, but my body it appreciated it so much. You know what I mean? It was just telling me, thank you. You take years of putting a bar across your back, and we don't realize it at that time, what that does to us. And regardless of if it's, high school, college athletes, or people that have been lifting for a long time, like you said, at the end of the season, people that aren't in those shoes don't realize what that's doing to your body and to your mind. That's the biggest thing. So stepping away from whatever it is that you're doing, and just gain a new perspective before you go back into it, is the biggest thing.
Yeah, what we do is not inherently healthy by any means. So being able to take a step back, to take 2 forward, 3 forward, whatever it ends up being, like that's huge. And I know you're mentally and physically, that probably like paid a huge dividend going forward, and it's probably another small reason why you were so successful after the fact. And that kind of ties into one of the last things I really want to talk about. Like, you have an extensive experience within powerlifting, and you are at a facility where like you're going to see some big numbers. Like, the people know the coaches there are well qualified. So maybe the intimidation factor, people aren't really shying away from you. But since you do have so much experience, you have such a lofty total, like how do you end up teaching like barbell and powerlifting movements to your general population, which is, I'm assuming, predominantly your clientele that you're getting? I know some are powerlifters themselves, but we talked about the basics and everything. Like, what's your approach to teaching them, since you do have such an experience, and when you pick up the bar, it's not the same as them picking up an empty barbell.
Yeah.
So like, how do you tie into them? How do you relate to them? Like, are there any differences between what you do with some of your powerlifting athletes, coaching them, versus general population, teaching them barbell movements?
Yeah, it's actually pretty similar, believe it or not. Um, Anytime anybody comes to me, I always approach the situation as if they know nothing. And the clientele base and our members at Union Fitness, it's really, really cool because we have people in their 20s and all the way through. We have some people in their 50s, but it's mainly, I would say, the demographic, if I looked it up, is like mid 20s to like 40 years old. And those are people that they're still, those are like the most active years of your life. And you still have these goals, and you still want to become better. So when these people walk in the door, I don't have to persuade them to try to get better. I don't have to use any like rah-rah terminology like maybe you would with a college kid who wants to sleep till noon every day, right? These people are coming in the door knowing that this is what they want to do and that we expect them to give it their all. So we have members that have never touched a bar before, and we have members that have been lifting since they were teenagers. But when somebody comes into my class or when somebody works with me for the first time, I basically break everything down into progressions. So even if they tell me they know how to barbell back squat, I say, okay, but I hand them a kettlebell, right? And I'm like, do a kettlebell goblet squat to a box, to a parallel box. And I analyze their form, make sure they're using their hips, their weight's evenly distributed on their feet, their whole foot. I'm making sure their lats and their sternum's in a good position and their eyes are in a good position. Make sure they have good external rotation, all the basics that you would. And then if they master that quickly, take the box away. All right, do the same thing without that box. But I want you to squat almost as if you're squatting to that box. If they do it, boom, let's go over to the squat rack. I'll put a bar on their back. If they have, mobility issues or something, I'll use a specialty bar, a yoke bar or something like that. And then I go through that whole process again with a bar. So do a barbell squat to this box. If they do that well, all right, take the box away, do a barbell squat without the box. And then if they do that, and that doesn't take very long, you can tell in, 5-10 minutes if somebody's ready to jump into work. And from that, I'll throw them into class. Now, if they come into class and they're not ready to progress with the people who have been doing it for a while, then I'll keep them off to the side. And this is where my experience in the college setting really comes into play, because I think a lot of personal trainers are so used to one-on-one work that if they're working with groups, they're kind of flustered and they can't multitask and bounce back and forth. But when you're working in a college setting, sometimes it's chaos, all hell's breaking loose, and you got to be able to look at multiple individuals at one time. So if my classes are 10 people and we're squatting that day, I got this person who's not ready to quite jump in with the other groups. So I got them off to the side on their own squat rack, and I'm working with them as I'm watching the other groups. And then, if they need a couple classes before they can progress into the other groups, then we do it. But I don't care how bad somebody is like, Kurt, I just want to go over with them. Safety is first, man. And it's taken a long time for me to get to the point where I am. I'm not going to let somebody progress and jump into something that they're not ready for. And I think that's the biggest thing when you're working with other people is it's their livelihood. It's their health. It's in your hands if they hurt themselves. So you got to do everything you can to look out for them. And that's kind of how I approach it, is just, pretend like they've never done it before. And if they have, and if they're really good at it, good. But if they're not ready, then, you do what you can with them.
I love it. Yeah, that's a great way. I like to say, and I tell a lot of my athletes that come in the first time, because some of them do come with experience, or they wear their talent on the field as a badge of honor is, well, I can pick up strength conditioning right away, like past experience. And a lot of times the best athletes in their sport are not the best in the weight room. And it's usually the complete opposite case.
Yeah.
So that's awesome to hear, because the program is going to advance as they progress as well. So they have to eventually earn it. And I think that's an awesome tie-in from how you work with your team and your crew of lifters. Like, you guys are going to help each other. You're surrounded by people that want the best for you, and they're looking out for your health and safety first, and you're going to push you. but you still have to have some sort of competency before you can actually get to the point of, in a client's case, like join the full group, like doing all the barbell movements correctly. That's great to hear. Hey, so I'm gonna put you on the spot here. We've finished the show with 4 quarters, 4 questions, and maybe a little bit of overtime. So take as much time as you want, or you can rapid fire answer them as quick as you want. But you ready?
Yep.
All right, man. So biggest influence in coaching, in the coaching profession, and biggest influence in powerlifting?
Dave Tate and Elite FTS. When I was at Salisbury, I would stay up until 3 a.m. reading articles and watching videos. And I still do that. You can ask my wife.
Dave Tate for both, huh?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I like that. All right. So when you're not coaching and competing, what are some of your outside hobbies?
Cars, 100%. When I am not competing, and my wife will tell you that I am addicted to fast cars and spending money on my cars. And it's probably a bad thing, but it's better than spending every hour of the day thinking about powerlifting. So of course, and hey, I got to throw in there spending time with her. When at the end of the day, when powerlifting's all done, she's always going to be there. So cars and spending time with my wife, definitely.
Yeah, there's a few brownie points. So this one might have answered itself then. If you weren't coaching, what would you be doing? And if you were not doing powerlifting, what sport would you have chosen?
If I wasn't coaching, I would try to find something else that I'm interested in. Like, I know a lot of people who are getting into jujitsu or getting into golfing or whatever. So I would find something else that I could still be competitive with. And if I wasn't powerlifting, I'd probably be playing like men's softball. Definitely, without a doubt. I mean, it's nowhere near as competitive, but something about baseball I'll always love.
Yeah, slightly less competitive, but all right. So ideal training day. What's your go-to playlist or PR song? And then after that, what's your go-to post-training meal?
Okay. So on the way to the training session, my playlist is different than the training session. This is gonna throw some people off. On the way to the training session, country. Because it always reminds me of growing up and simpler times. And sometimes we always overcomplicate things, and just listen to something that you grew up listening to slows you down and gets your mind in the right place. And then I'm sure I'll have some haters for this, but when I'm training, good chance if you throw on Metallica or AC/DC, I'm going to be satisfied. The guys that I train with are big into heavy metal, and it's cool. It gets you hyped up, but I got to understand what people are saying. And then you said post-training meal?
Yeah.
A burger. My goodness, a good cheeseburger. Like that's, if I could, let's go back to what I would do after powerlifting. If I wasn't powerlifting, I would travel the world and I'd find the best cheeseburgers on the planet. That's it.
It's not a bad way to do it.
No. I got to go back real quick. The powerlifting question number 1. I actually thought about that. As far as resource, Dave Tate and Elite FTS. As far as powerlifter, I got to go Chuck Vogelpohl.
Okay.
Because he was a nutcase, and his intensity, it was like, he was ready to run through a brick wall. So I had to go back and fix that one.
That's cool. I'll allow it. All right. Hey, so last one for you, overtime a little bit. Most valuable piece of advice you've received, and then if you want to, from who?
Goodness gracious. Most valuable piece of information, I think, is probably that to approach everything as if you know very little. And what that means is you have to be open-minded, and you have to understand that there's always something to learn from everybody. It doesn't matter if these people know nothing about what you do. There's something to learn when you listen to people. And I think that's a lesson I always learned from my father. Was he's learned so much from listening to other people and learning from other people. And that's something that, he just always taught me was, be humble and understand that there's always something that you can learn.
That's great advice. And I think anybody can take away from that. That's awesome, man. Hey, like I said, Curtis, like we haven't seen each other in a while. I know you've been doing a lot of big things, moving around and everything. And
you too, man. You too.
I appreciate you taking the time and coming on and sharing a lot of information with our audience today, man. And hope you feel a little bit better going forward. But we're looking forward to seeing what your next total looks like and everything you go.
Thank you, dude. I really appreciate you having me on. And one thing that's been really cool is seeing the guests that you've had on so far and knowing that I know them and that, we kind of come from the same place. It's just really cool looking back and seeing how everybody's been progressing throughout their career when we all kind of started in the same place. So keep doing your thing, man. I enjoy listening to you, and it's really inspiring seeing everybody really live up to what their goals are. It's been awesome. So thanks again.
Yeah, man. It's been great to see a lot of old Salisbury guys and even some other local ones come on and see what they're up to. It's kind of like a reunion we never really get to have. And like you and along with all the other guests we've had on, it's awesome to see where you guys have come from, knowing that, and then be able to showcase to a few other people that, hey, this is where they started and this is where they are now. And it's a testament to what you guys have been doing. And it's awesome to see how you guys have progressed and catch up and now be peers and be able to share information back and forth. It's awesome.
It's a lot of fun. It really is. So thanks again, dude.
Yeah. Thank you, man. Take care, bud.
Thanks. You too. I'll talk to you soon.
That's it for this episode of The Strength Game. Thank you again to this week's guest and to our sponsors, Cerberus Strength. Be sure to connect and keep up with our guests at the links in the description below. Remember to subscribe to us on Apple and Google Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast provider to stay up to date on all future episodes. Also, check us out on YouTube and CoachO'Brien.com, where you can find all the video versions of these episodes, as well as show notes, episode schedule, and much more. Comments, ratings, and reviews are always welcome and appreciated. Thanks again for tuning in, and be sure to join us next week for another great episode of The Strength Game.